Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be talking about the green Ceresmon ramp deck. So for those who don't know what a ramp deck is, you're basically trying to accelerate your resources so that way you could play your cards faster and more efficiently than your opponent. Ceresmon is definitely a Digimon that is really good to ramp into and to accelerate into because you could use its ability to try to help control and manipulate the opponent's field, so that way it makes it very hard for them to play the game because of his ability. Going over the deck, first let's start with the Digitama. I'm going to be running 4 copies of Argomon. So this is the level 2 Argomon, and it's really good because it has a nice inheritable ability where during our turn, if this Digimon becomes active during the active phase, then we get +1 memory. So obviously being a ramp style deck, making sure that we have as much memory and we could use it as efficiently as possible is always going to be a very good thing, and Argomon is definitely a good Digitama to help us with that goal. And then the last Digitama of the deck is going to be 1 copy of Minomon. So Minomon is in here because he has this nice inheritable ability where when this Digimon is attacking the opponent's Digimon, then this Digimon gets +1000 DP till the end of the turn. So this just allows us to basically want to attack into our opponent's Digimon, so that way we could get rid of it before it becomes too big of a problem, or if it is a problem, then we find some way to rest it and attack into it, and the DP buff definitely helps us win a lot of those battles. Next, on to our rookies. So I'm going to be running 4 copies of Goblimon. So Goblimon is just your value vanilla rookie. There's really not much else. He's very efficient to play, and he's very efficient to evolve with. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Tentomon. So Tentomon is pretty good because he has this inheritable ability where when we're attacking, we could arrest one of our opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less, which it's still a very solid ability because we do have a little bit of rest synergy and we want our opponent's Digimon to be rested so that way we could attack into it. So Tentomon is just a great card for this inheritable ability. Next, I'm running 4 copies of Agumon. So Agumon is in here similar to why Tentomon is in here, except his inheritable ability is during our turn, this Digimon gets +1000 DP. So we really just want the inheritable ability off of Agumon, so that way we could, again, win a lot of trades against the opponent's Digimon, so that way we could really beat them up and try to make sure that the opponent doesn't have any Digimon on the field. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Terriermon. So Terriermon is pretty good because he has this static ability where during both players' turns, your opponent can't gain memory except by tamer effects. So this is really powerful because it can potentially lock the opponent out of a lot of their potential plays by them not being able to gain some memory. And as we know, the whole point of our deck is try to accelerate into our megas and use our memory as efficiently as possible. So putting the opponent off of their memory definitely helps us be more efficient in ours. Next, on to the champions of the deck. I'm running 4 copies of Woodmon because Woodmon is just the blocker of the deck. Blockers are still very important to run, so this is just green's current blocker. Next, I'm running 4 copies of Kabuterimon. So Kabuterimon is pretty good because he is very cheap to digivolve into, so that definitely helps with our efficiency in digivolving. And then on top of which, he has this nice inheritable ability where during our turn for every one of our opponent's rested Digimon, this Digimon gets a +1000 DP. So basically, he is just another DP buff card, and cards like Tentomon will definitely be able to help rest the opponent's Digimon down to increase the DP of our Digimon even more. So Kabuterimon is just a pretty solid card at being able to gain lots of DP. Next up, I'm running 2 copies of the level 4 Argomon. So the level 4 Argomon is pretty good because he has this download or digizorption ability. So basically what download or digizorption does is we get to rest one of our Digimon to reduce the digivolution cost of this Digimon by whatever the download or digizorption ability is. So this having download or digisorption of 2 would basically mean that if we play Argomon correctly, then he is essentially a 0 to digivolve into champion Digimon. And that's just really, really good because it helps us get into our higher levels that much faster. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Gargomon. So Gargomon is in here because he's basically a clone of Kabuterimon, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because it definitely helps with consistency on seeing the ability. On top of which, he's still a very, very efficient Digimon to digivolve with. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of the level 5 Argomon. So Argomon at level 5 has the download or digisorption ability of 3, so that means he's still basically effectively 0 to evolve into if you're using this download or digisorption ability. And then he even has this nice inheritable ability where when you're attacking, you may play 1 level 3 green Digimon from your hand in the rested position without paying its cost. So yes, it's still rested, but that doesn't necessarily matter because you're still getting a body on board, which could potentially be very, very dangerous for the opponent if you're able to build up a very wide board, on top of which, because green is very, very efficient to digivolve into, you could literally swing and then start digivolving on top of the Digimon you just played for free, which is just more value and more efficiency. So overall, this Argomon is just an absolute fantastic card and a great complement to the deck. And then the last ultimate that we're going to be running is going to be 4 copies of Blossomon. So Blossomon is in here for the exact same reasons as Argomon, except it doesn't have an inheritable ability, but it does have the download or digisorption ability of 3, so it's still very, very efficient to digivolve into. Next up, onto the Megas, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Ceresmon. So Ceresmon is just a very, very powerful Mega for a whole bunch of different reasons. So the first big reason is it has this download or digisorption ability innately. So that means it is one of the cheaper Digimon to digivolve into a Mega with if you use this ability. Otherwise, it's just really, really expensive. But outside of that, it has a nice ability when it's on the field where during your turn, once per turn, you may rest one of your opponent's Digimon instead when using download or digisorption. So this is really good because it is a form of resting the opponent's Digimon down, and on top of which, because of how download and digisorption works, you're building up whatever you're digivolving into that much more efficiently because you're using the opponent's cards to pay for your costs. And then, while the Digimon is rested, you have the option to attack into the opponent's security uncontested, or you could use it to attack into the opponent's Digimon, trying to beat the opponent's Digimon up so the opponent doesn't have anything. So, this card is just an absolute fantastic card overall, and it is definitely the big key center point of the deck. And then the last Mega of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Bancho Stingmon. So Bancho Stingmon is just a very solid complementary Mega where he innately has piercing. So that means when we attack into our opponent's Digimon, then we also deal them security damage. And then on top of that, he even has this really nice when attacking ability, where if this Digimon is attacking an opponent's Digimon with 12,000 or more DP, it gets a plus 7,000 DP bonus and security attack plus 2. So basically, for the big threats that Ceresmon can't necessarily deal with alone, Bancho Stingmon is here to basically clean those up, on top of dealing a lot of damage to the opponent's security. So Bancho Stingmon is just a overall fantastic Mega to complement Ceresmon with. Next, in terms of our options go, we're running a pretty option light deck because we're just trying to focus on building up our board as quickly and efficiently as possible. So we just need to see a lot more Digimon than we do a lot more options. So I'm only electing to run 3 copies of Flower Cannon. So Flower Cannon is in here just to be able to rest one of the opponent's Digimon down if it's in your hand, and then if it's in the security, then we get to rest all of the opponent's Digimon down without blocker. So potentially, if this is revealed in the security, it could stop a lot of potential attacks on your security. And then if it's in your hand, then obviously resting one of the opponent's Digimon down is very, very good. So that way we could attack into it and remove it before it starts becoming too big of a problem. So Flower Cannon is overall one of the best green option cards we could run currently. And next, on to the Tamers. I'm only running 3 copies of Mimi because she is just our memory fixer for the deck. So she's pretty good because at the start of our turn, if our memory is 2 or less, then it becomes 3. So that allows us to basically play a lot of our megas and swing with them, potentially. And then on top of that, she also has a really good main ability where if we have a level 5 or higher green Digimon, then we could rest this card and hatch a Digi-Egg from our raising area, or move one level 3 or higher Digimon from our raising area into the battle area. So basically, she allows us to accelerate being able to play our Digimon, and that is very, very good because we want to build a big, wide board state as quickly as possible, and Mimi is just a fantastic card at doing that. On top of which, she also has a nice security ability, where if she's revealed from the security, then you get to play her for free. And then as far as other cards you could possibly run in the deck, I think Tentomon is another fantastic Digitama that you could possibly run, where it gives the inheritable ability when you're attacking. If you Digivolved with a Digimon once or more this turn, then this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. So it's just rewarding you for the act of Digivolving, and you're going to be Digivolving quite a bit in this deck. So having a good card to reward that type of play with a DP boost is definitely not a bad option to think about. Next up, you could run Palmon. So Palmon is a great rookie because it has a nice when played ability where you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add a level 4 among them into your hand, and then the rest go on to the bottom. So whether this is Brawl played or you play this off of the level 5 Argomon, it's just a very fantastic Digimon to have nonetheless to get this ability off, and then you could use its ability to help find new evolution chains. You could also run the level 3 Argomon because the level 3 Argomon is just another value vanilla. You could also play Vegemon, so Vegemon is pretty good because this card is just a really fantastic value vanilla Digimon, very efficient to Digivolve into. If you really need to play, it's not like terribly expensive, and then it still has some decent DP for its level. You could also run Togemon. So Togemon is pretty good, even though it's not the cheapest to Digivolve into, it's not the most expensive either, but it has a great win evolving ability where you get to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck and add a level 5 or higher Digimon among them into your hand and then put the rest on the bottom. So this is a good card to think about because it's very similar to what Palmon was doing, where you're just looking for new cards so that way you could find more evolution chains. You could also run Stingmon. So Stingmon is pretty good because, again, another champion that's very, very efficient to Digivolve into. And then on top of which, he even has a nice inheritable ability where during your turn, once per turn, if this Digimon destroys an opponent's Digimon by battle, then you get +1 memory. So it's just another way at helping fix your memory and be able to play more of your cards and extend a lot of your plays. As far as alternate megas go, you could also run the level 6 Argomon. So you could play the level 6 Argomon because it has download 3, so it's very cheap to Digivolve into, similar to Ceresmon, except that this one also has benefit for your Digimon being rested, where it'll get security attack +1 for each of the other rested Digimon down. So you could potentially build a very wide board state, start swinging at the opponent's Digimon, and then have an Argomon swing at the opponent's security for lots of potential damage. You could also run Mega Gargomon. So Mega Gargomon, even though he's a little bit expensive to Digivolve into, his abilities are still very, very good, where when you Digivolve into this Digimon, you get to rest one of your opponent's Digimon down, and then it doesn't become active during their next active phase. So that's really good just because you could potentially lock down their biggest threat from being able to swing again. On top of which, during our turn, if our opponent has a rested Digimon down, then this Digimon gets security attack +1. So obviously being able to rest the opponent's Digimon down is a very, very important thing to what green is doing. it's very, very likely that they're going to have a rested Digimon down at almost all times. So having Security Attack 1 just makes Gargomon a decent Digimon to deal lots of damage really quickly. And then you could also think about running the Green Imperial Dramon Dragon Mode. So even though you're not really going to be getting the cost reduction from its innate ability, because we're not running Pyildramon or Dino Beamon, it's still a very good and powerful Mega to have nonetheless, because it innately has piercing, and it can attack multiple times with its own ability, where during your turn, once per turn, when your opponent's Digimon is destroyed by battle with this Digimon, then this Digimon becomes active. And then obviously the whole piercing strategy where we'll beat the opponent's Digimon up, deal security damage. Imperial Dramon Dragon Mode will stand himself up, swing again, beat up another opponent's Digimon, or attack into the opponent's security. So obviously the big whole theme of all of these alternate megas is a good solid way of dealing multiple forms of security damage, because we really need to keep our Ceresmon alive as efficiently as possible, so it's not necessarily going to be doing the bulk of the damage dealing. And then if you're looking for another option card to use, Hidden Potential Discovered is a very, very good option card. So what the card does is it has a main effect where if one of your green Digimon would Digivolve this turn, you could suspend one of your Digimon to reduce the memory cost of the Digivolution by 5. So basically this is kind of like pseudo download except in an option form, and it's free, so it doesn't really cost anything. But the fact that it is just making your cards more efficient to play is definitely very, very good. So it could open the doors for a whole bunch of different opportunities and different ways you could build the deck. And then it even has a nice security effect where you get to add this card into your hand. So whether it's in your hand or in the security, it's still going to be a very, very valuable card because it allows you to just make a massive tempo swing by allowing you to Digivolve into more expensive things for basically free. So for the most part, this is my interpretation of the green Ceresmon deck. So I definitely think this is going to be a very, very strong deck going forward. And it is definitely going to be looking like a very, very interesting deck to play. So that's kind of all I really have for this video. As always, I'll have the deck list in the description below, and feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I will see you in the next video.